understand.
Are you hardwired in, or are you wireless? Because you're still really jittery. I heard that one.
Oh, you did? You heard me that time?
Yep.
Hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Oh my God, did it fix itself?
I think so.
Did it fix itself? Did it fix itself? Amazing. Maybe it fixed itself. Maybe I got lucky. No? Oh no. He looks like he can't hear me.
No, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay, well, you're still there, but I don't know what's going on with my internet. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand why it's being fickle.
I can only diagnose my side.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me now. Am I jittery?
The camera is, yeah.
I'm so jittery. It may be the upload, because right now I can hear you perfectly and everything's fine on my end. So, but is my voice okay? Like, can you hear me?
Right now it is. It like dropped.
Okay, but the camera that's being a fickle bitch?
At this point, yeah.
Oh, well. Okay, well, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Okay. It'll be fine. Okay, sorry.
What did I stop
I'm
at?
just a little bit frustrated. I don't know. You were talking about you were in college, and then the last thing I heard, you were in college and you're living in the basement of who is your wife now.
Yep.
But it was your fiance at the time, and you're really you're reading about libertarian capitalism. That was the last I heard.
Yeah, that was a freshman level course. That was kind of a inflection point of, is that really a good thing? And it's really not. But that was really a questioning thing of, if this is wrong, my point of view, what else could be? And as I got out of college and worked into different jobs, and seeing things like, I don't think this is right. I don't like how this works. I think this is wrong, and this should change. And as I'm doing this, I'm also going through the last vestiges of my religious upbringing and going, well, I don't need that, and I can move on from that. And I'm here now, and I haven't gone to anything organized like that in a long time. Oh, I think we lost you again. I think your internet's going to have to be the killer for the night. That's unfortunate. That'd be 3 strikes. And a message. And wait and see what happens. Because if no host, it's cool. So yes, she was kicked again. Good. That's not a deal. Because if so, maybe.
Okay. Done. Not touching anything else. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kinda.
Yeah. I can
I can't hear
hear it.
you.
It's just
Damn it.
well,
Say something.
something.
Okay, good. Okay, now I can hear you. Okay. I'm not gonna touch anything. You're just gonna talk and I'm gonna shove food in my face.
Okay,
Things in my mouth.
I can try to do that. Um,
I'm so sorry. I don't. My headnose being really, really buggy. I don't know why. So anyway, go ahead.
so like one of the jobs I worked at made me think differently about the upbringing I had with economic theory was at a company that is based in the area that is quite large, and we was doing invoices for their intercompany groups, so all the different entities across the globe, and seeing the invoices come up and get passed through as they transfer materials and stuff. And some of the things you saw there, it's like, how are they able to sell this in that country? Well, there's a workaround for them because they got this government to allow them to do this. It's like, I don't. That was at the same time that the uh, Kansas experiment with zero tax at the state level happened, and they almost went bankrupt in 3 years. And the Kansas experiment, the way that was written, was like the pinnacle of what we were taught at my university. That was supposed to be like the top level of solves everything for growth. And that if you did that at the style that they did, you would have zero problems. And yet, within 3 years, the state of Kansas went from being surviving after the recession to almost bankrupt, and it's taken them 6 years past that to get back to where they were before they started the experiment. So that was the end of where my economic awakening was. It's like, well, then I don't think that this theory actually works. If we've seen it in action and we've seen it fail, then that was supposed to be the way to do it. And if it's not working in the exact way that they wanted it to be done, how is it going to work otherwise? Well, now we've seen that theory was not the only thing that was not the actual thing they wanted. What they wanted was just certain tax cuts and certain privileges to groups that they favored, and we're dealing with that now. Yeah, we're dealing with it now in other ways too. But that was right about 2016, 2017, and I started getting involved locally. So before 2019, all of our elections for the city were on odd years. So it was major election, minor election, major election, minor election, and you just keep going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So 2017, the seats for the even wards in my town, so the 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 8th, were all up. 17 would have been the odd. So 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 were up because that's the only way that worked. And that wasn't me. I wasn't in those zones. So I went to meetings. I started speaking at all of them. I found something to say that was locally pertinent, and usually the answer was nothing. And that was partially by design. The way the meetings were written and made up was that there was no back and forth feedback. It's one way communication, and there was no requirement for anyone to actually respond to you at the meetings. And so I decided to get involved and do something. And that was when I went on as a writing candidate for our charter commission. And if you don't know what a charter commission is, in most states, your municipalities all have what's called a charter. And the charter is like a little constitution where you're technically underneath your state and federal constitution, but it has some guidelines for how your specific municipality runs. And in our charter, it was written that every 20 years, it would go in front of the voters to determine if they wanted to open up the charter for edits. And that varies by municipality. Some have no requirement to open it ever. Some have a 10-year gap. Some have a 5-year gap, just to say, hey, you have to put it in front of the voters, and if you open it, do you want to open it? The second part of that equation is that you have to have seats for it, no matter the size of the municipality. Unless it's written in your charter, it has to be 9 members. If the majority of people vote yes, but there's not 9 members in the charter commission, the charter commission is done, and there are no changes to the charter, and it has to wait for the next cycle to come back through. And we only had 3 people that were actually on the ballot for the charter commission. So I put in my affidavit of identity, the little thing saying, yes, I live in the city, and went in as a write-in. And there were like 23, 24 of us for the write-in seat. So 24 people looking for 6 seats. And I got the 5th most votes out of the 24, which was only like 86 because it's an odd year. It's an odd year election. No one goes to odd year elections unless there's something big on it. And there's really isn't in Michigan very, very often. So with a whopping 86 votes, I got into a elected government position in 2017. Mind you, that's 86 out of a population of like 34,000. So like it's literally almost nobody, but it was 86 people that did it. So that was kind of cool.
All right.
And we spent 2 years working on it, trying to make changes, trying to streamline it. And there were some positive things. There were some things that we kind of just went with and changed because we had to, because some things got outdated by the state. So if the state changes the law from the last time you wrote a charter and you have that listed, you have to change it to match state law. Okay, fine, that makes sense. Some things that we wanted to change otherwise, like something I pushed and we voted for as a commission, was to reduce the number of wards we had from 9 to 7. Our population in our city has been about halved in the past 50 years. So the idea was we don't need 9 people when we were running odd year elections and getting 10% turnout. You could get 200 people and win an election for a city commission seat for 4 years. So the package that was passed for that section of the charter was to drop it to 7 wards and to move elections to the even years. Well, there was a lawyer who was the vice chair of the committee that managed to get the charter version with that pulled back and flipped a couple of votes to remove the decrease in size. So we were still at 9, but we made some other changes, and we're on even years, which means that there's always 5 elections. So 4 wards in the mayor or 5 wards that are on a major election year. It saves the city decent amount of money because they don't have to run an election on an off year. You can just kind of piggyback into the rest of the system, but it means that the races get kind of lost in the stew that is a major election. So that was in 2019. We approved the charter as a commission in 2019 to go in front of the voters in 2019 on that general election year. I also put in to run for the city commission seat at that point for my ward. And that one I lost to who's now the current mayor and who was a former commissioner before me. And I got outspent like 7-1 and still got like 40% of the vote. So I thought that was, not a real win. It wasn't an actual win, but it felt kind of like a win.
That's still impressive.
It was better than I should have with the amount of money he spent. But because we moved the elections to even years after that, everything went from a 4-year term to a 5-year term. So everyone who got elected at that point or who was already on the commission got an extra year. So I had to wait again until last year, 2024, to try again. And the commissioner ran for mayor because our current mayor was termed out and had resigned for medical issues. And I ran. There's 3 of us who ran, and so because that we had a primary, I was the only race that had a full contested primary. There was one other ward that had a primary, but it was not contested in the same way. They had one person who actually got second place even though they didn't do anything, and then they didn't win the general. It was really strange. And I won the general with like 57% of the vote, which is not a blowout by any means, but it is enough to secure a first past the post by a decent amount. And the guy I was running against was pretty much completely opposite of me. He is in his 80s, very loud Republican who had at one point had signs.
A very loud Republican. I like that description.
There's some of his public inputs are quite interesting and have a pseudo cult following of people who go, wow, that's what they do at city meetings, huh? Because some of it just goes. And he got a trailer. He did a lot of stuff considering he had never actually gotten in politics as a candidate before, but finished the election and got sworn in January. And we've now been 7 months in, trying to do things, but getting a lot of pushback from different groups, both including city staff. City staff doesn't like some of the things that we've brought forward and asked them to do. From former commissioners, I have a former commissioner in my ward who is trying to get his wife to run against me in 2028, who every time I bring something to the table, she sends me something. It's like, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to focus on this instead. It's like, well, I am focusing on this. We have a plan for this. We have a protocol for this too. And your husband would know that blighted houses, when they're on private land, have a process. And you should know that because your husband was on that too. But you're going to say that I need to go and knock the house down myself. That's not how that works. And you know that's not how it works. And the kind of just disingenuous attacks for people who know better, trying to slow down things that we're trying to do and just slow down our change. Because again, we're lost almost half a population in 50 years. Our county has the oldest average age in the state of Michigan by like almost half a year. And if we don't try to change things the way they've always been, then we're not going to be, because the way it's always been has seen a lot of negative changes to our population and our economic power in the state. I think you muted.
I'm sorry. That sounds like government as usual, because you get someone that has expertise and knows what they're talking about, and then somebody's going around going, no, you don't really know what you're talking about, and I want you to go double check the thing that you already know how to do.
Well, and I mean, that's not the first time I've been told that in my life either. So like in college, it was, hey, if you get an associate's degree, you finish 2 years, you can get a full-time job in accounting. That's going to be it pays your bills and then some. And after I got my 2 years in, they were like, no, you have to finish your 4 years to be able to do that. Then after finish 4 years, like, no, now you have to have an internship that is unpaid for 6 months, plus have a career track with one of these firms. And if you don't have that, then you're never going to get a job in accounting, and you're just going to be lying in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, so you lied to me the whole time there. The same thing in politics. It's like, well, you need to send your commissioner emails. Well, when at that point, the commissioner that was there didn't respond to emails, so that didn't do anything. Okay, you need to show up to the meetings. I showed up to the meetings. The commissioners either didn't respond to me, or a couple times, I had one commissioner who threatened to sue me because I said something about him, even though what I said was something that he said previously. It's like, okay, well, that's not working. So run for the seat. And run for the seats go, well, you can't do that. It's like, well, yes, I can. If I have the will of the commission on my side, we can do things. It's just a matter of how much are we going to be able to do before people stop supporting change and they go back to the, well, I guess we can't get anything done, so we're not going to do anything. And that's the fight to try to stop.
So would you consider that the one of the more frustrating things that you have to deal with?
Yeah, is people who go, oh yeah, I want to make these changes, I want to do this stuff, and they go and they go, well, do we really want to make this change? Is that something we actually have to do, or should we focus on this other thing? It's like, you can do multiple things at once. We're part-time commissioners. Like, yes, we're part-time commissioners. Like, we have ideas. We can send them through the city staff. City staff can give us recommendations. And if they don't want to give us recommendations, why are they wanting to give us recommendations? So like the one that's, it's a small thing, but it's still prevalent to kind of the atheist side of it, is we had commission rules. And the commission rules, there's a spot in there for invocations. And the invocation has always been the same invocation, read out of a Bible, even though it's not actually a biblical passage. It's read out of a Bible and ends with Amen, and mentions Heavenly Father. So a couple years ago, before I was on, I submitted through the clerk, or to the city manager, to the clerk. So you have to like send it through to certain people for approval, different invocations from to different religions to read. And I got responses saying, yes, this has been received. This has been received. And then I was not really surprised, but just disappointed that those ones I sent didn't get read. So I had sent them on, and they wouldn't get read. But I was told, well, you received them. We're like, well, if you're supposed to be open to all of them, why are you not reading any of them other than your own?
Right.
So I filed a thing with our Human Resources Committee, because that we have, that citizens can submit saying, hey, I don't think this is right, whether it's racial, religious, sexual, yeah, like the protected classes. Yeah, the protected classes. If you think you've been wronged, you can submit it. It's like, well, I'm submitting this to a group that is appointed by the city commission, but they include
But you're
people.
supposed to look into this stuff.
Yep, and they said, well, that technically this isn't discrimination by the books because they're not saying you can't submit things, but we are going to recommend to the city that they change the invocation. And this was in 2023. The meetings for that specific meeting were not brought to the commission to this day. The other stuff that they have has come to the commission, but that one has, for some reason, not made it to the city commission 2 years later.
I wonder why.
The response I've gotten when I've asked was that there is not enough support to send the minutes to the city commission. It's like, I'm on the city commission now. I know what was in the meeting. I have the recording from that meeting. And they just don't want to make that official. So when I had a different commissioner who said, hey, can we get rid of the invocation? I'm like, sure. I took suggestions to change the city rules, and that was one of the things that I was looking at. And I got a different commissioner who said, yeah, why don't we do it? I'm like, perfect. So I put it on there, and it got removed for the draft to be read for the commission to pass. And I had a commissioner who said that, well, if we remove the invocation, are we also going to stop doing St. Patrick's Day? Are we going to not have a tree in the park around Christmas time? Are we going to change the names of holidays so that the city doesn't like he went full slippery slope very quickly.
So what?
Yeah, over something that's like I just don't want an invocation read before the meetings, and I was not the only one on the commission who indicated that at the point.
So because you were like, hey, we work in government, let's keep religion out of it, and they were like, no, because then we can't have this and we can't have that. And to be fair, like, yeah, like, no, you shouldn't really be putting up like religious symbols, in government property, but nobody's stopping you for that. Like, you can put up a fucking tree if you want. No one's stopping you, but we're not going to endorse any religion at all. So what the hell is the problem, man?
Yep. And so that split the chamber. Actually, it didn't split the chamber. That failed in the chamber with 5 votes in favor and 2 votes against. And it was not able to be brought up again because per the city manager, the rule to change commission rules requires 6 voting members to approve it. So even though 5 out of 7 who were in attendance did, and we had 2 that were not seated, so we had 2 vacant seats. That it did not pass. And
wow.
The good people at the Freedom of Religion Action Fund got caught onto it and sent me some emails because they endorsed me for my run, and then they saw that and they talked to me and were like, what can you do? I'm like, well, honestly, nothing. And I didn't want them to come in and be a wrecking ball and turn it into a big thing, but I was just hoping that they would be aware of it, because when they asked me, I was like, well, you can be aware of it, but I don't really want you guys to wrecking ball the whole thing, because in my town it likely would have turned into that, and it failed. Okay, if we do any changes again to the rules, it might come up again because we still have the same people in the seats for the most part. So if we only do one, we'll need one more. There's 2 that are going to be placed before the next election at this point, and we have an election where 5 of them going to be up for election. So you never know. So if it comes up again, we'll put it up again, as long as people are okay with it.
Interesting. I don't know. I know that I always say that religion and politics need to stop fucking each other. They really need a divorce, because it gets all muddled and weird when you don't have that separation. Because we're not supposed to live in a theocracy, and I'm sure that it's frustrating, just working on the city commission and being like, what the hell, and you can't even get a little amendment passed, even brought to the table saying, okay, maybe we shouldn't do an evocation before we do our meetings. Maybe that'd be great.
Yeah, because it's not like we don't require it for any other committees in the city. So it's not like it's a requirement up and down the line. It's only our body for some reason. And it just the justification to keep it didn't make sense to me, because all it really did was say that we want to keep it the way it is, and the way it is broken because we don't want to open it up to others, because we don't accept the others that are submitted. And
Right.
the justification makes no sense. And I mean, I didn't have 6 votes, so I didn't have 6 votes, and the rule change was adjusted to not have that in there, and that's and that was just passed at the last meeting. So we made changes, we made positive changes, but that one didn't make it because of some squirrely rules that are in the requirements for changing specific rules for your body, even though it makes absolutely no sense when you consider you can have a simple majority usually take anything in a situation like that.
That is strange. So I want to kind of go back to, because my internet was wonky.
Mhm.
So how did you, how, like, I know you talked a little bit about, like, did you grow up like evangelical Christian?
So for most of the childhood, it was in a Baptist church, and it was
Okay.
it was Southern without the slavery denial was the slogan that I was told by the one pastor.
Oh.
And so, it's essentially Southern.
Is that woke?
Essentially
I
Southern
guess
Baptist.
it's
Well,
woke.
today it would be. Today it would be. And
Yeah.
then my family, I had an uncle who was a United Methodist preacher, and I mean, heck, my family history includes the last person burned at the stake for heresy against the Church of England. So, I mean, I have the rebel blood, even though it wasn't like he was anti-Christian; he was just anti-Church of England. So,
Church should not be the state.
yeah, because that's a good example of it. It's just like it was very much a what we would consider today evangelical side, and there was always limits. So like at the radio station, it was like, well, we'll work with these churches. These churches are okay, but those Pentecostals, we don't work with Pentecostals because they speak in tongues. We don't want to work with them. And it's like, well, in my childhood mind, it was well, if they're all Christian and they just think it differently, what's wrong with that? And I'm 10, 12 at that point. Like
Right.
the stories at that age were all like, oh yeah, we're all one body, we're all one thing, and then suddenly it's like you see the harsh reality of we're not, because I don't like how they do things, so I don't want them
Right.
included. I don't want them included in the gang. And now you see it with the prevalence of Mormons and how they've grown in power in the United States in the past 25 years.
Yeah.
And like, well, they're not in the club either for the most part, even though
Neither are Catholics.
yeah. And see, in my town, we're more Catholic than average. So like the Catholics, quote unquote, control the religious narrative in Bay City because they have the big festival, they have the big church, they're the biggest church. They also have the second biggest church and the third biggest church. So like they have a lot of power in the city, which is not normal across the United States. But the view that they get to control everything is very interesting, because I grew up in the Catholics didn't do X right, so they're not actually the real thing. No True Scotsman starts really early when you start getting asked questions about why we don't associate with certain churches.
Right. I mean, because I grew up Catholic, so we but like the majority of where I grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire, is Catholic. It was just different types of Catholic. I was French Catholic, and then you had the Irish Catholics, and then you had the Italian Catholics. And we had like one Mormon temple, and we had like a couple synagogues and stuff, but it was mostly Catholic. Now, because a lot of the Irish Protestants have moved in from Massachusetts, there's more. Yeah, see, they do that, and now there's a little bit more diversity going on as far as the religions go. But when I was growing up, it was mostly Catholic, and I didn't realize until I got into these spaces where Catholics aren't considered Christians, which I find really funny, because I go, well, because I've had conversations with theists that I'm like, but you both believe in the resurrected Christ, right? And they go, yeah. And I go, then they're a Christian. And they're like, well, they're not the right type of Christian because they follow, the Pope. And I'm like, yeah, but the Pope also believes in the resurrected Christ. So here you go.
And even within that, so like the two of the three largest churches that were the Catholic churches were Polish Catholic in this town. We had St. Stanislaus Kostka and St. Hyacinth, and they only split because the St. Stanislaus group were the original Polish immigrants who came to America and learned English right away so they could fit in. And the second generation ones didn't want to learn English right away. They wanted to keep the traditions from the homeland. And that got into major fights at the church every week at Mass because the priests didn't want to do Polish services on the weekly anymore. So they got in a fight and actually called the National Guard in at the time because they were fighting in the streets because the priests didn't want to do Polish Mass anymore. So they got everyone involved and created the second church. And that split still felt like 130 years later. But in the town, because you have the people who are over there who are like, my family's always been a Hyacinth family, or my family's always been a St. Stan's family. And over the past 20 years, the Catholics have shrunken and renamed a lot of their churches. So St. Stanislaus Kostka is now Our Lady of Chikwatka. I cannot pronounce that for the life of me half the time. And they're closing St. Hyacinth. And they've been trying to close St. Hyacinth for years. And the people who go to St. Hyacinth do not want to go to St. Stan still. Even though the issue that caused the church to fracture at that point is no longer an issue. But because they have their own building, they have their own system, they've done it for so long in their minds that we cannot possibly go back to.
Why would we change it?
Yeah. And I mean, the churches are half, and the churches are half mile apart. They both used to host schools that were combined in the 70s. So the schools were combined back in the 70s.
Okay.
And they just don't want to accept that they're not able to sustain two churches of that size in our town anymore. And the diocese is making a choice for them on which one survives. And they obviously don't like that because they're not getting to choose. But when you're in the Catholic system, you don't get to choose. The diocese chooses.
It comes down from if it's not, it's going to come down from your cardinal.
Yep.
And the cardinal, it depends on who's making decisions for that particular diocese. Sorry, it's not up to you. You follow Rome.
Yep. And you don't even know what they're thinking half the time.
No, of course not. No, because they're not. No, there's no cardinal or representative from you don't get a representative government within the Catholic Church. Because it's cardinal. The cardinal tells the bishop, and the bishop does the stuff to tell the priest, and then goes, "This is what we're going to do." It's all hierarchy.
And then you have the issues with the abuse issues. Like I was in Scouts, and in Scouts in the 90s and early 2000s, the youth training was it's effectively stranger danger, but on campsites, which isn't really the thing. Like, we know that stranger danger is not the main cause for abuse and assault.
Nope.
But the Scouts held on to that for a while. They just changed that probably 15, 20 years ago, where they finally said, listen, we know what it actually is. It's usually the parents. It's usually the parents that everyone trusts and knows. So, we're going to start doing trainings more often where you have the two deep leadership, you have no one alone, and you start using shared tents so that you don't have abuse between the kids even. So they active choice after they had everything come out that the national organization was hiding things for way too long.
Yep.
And I remember the videotape from when we were in the Cub Pack that they had the old gay uncle who was the one who was supposedly fondling the kids, and that was one of the main stories that they pushed back then. And it's like, in hindsight,
it's always the queers that abuse children. Alex, duh.
Yeah. So that
what are you talking about? I'm queer. I'm supposed to abuse children. Them's the rules.
So they've changed and they've positive moves there, but it's like the history of that. It's like it took them that long. It took them almost. Well, they technically did go bankrupt to settle out the remaining lawsuits. And it's like, you guys knew about this for way longer than I've been involved in the program, and you still didn't do anything until you were forced to by outside forces. And yet their total participation has kept going down, because when they made that change, that's when the Mormons left. And then when they decided that they were going to have the girls
But the
involved,
Mormons, when did the Mormons leave?
right
Clarify
around
that again.
right around the recession, the Mormons
Okay,
for the most part split out in their own groups. They have their own system now. And then when they allowed the girls in to match every other scouting organization in the world, like 2 countries, it's like every other country that does scouting, it's co-ed. In the U.S., it wasn't. It was always an outlier. They said, yeah, we'll allow the girls to have their own packs, troops, patrols, whatever level you're on. And that's when the Catholics started leaving. And the Catholics left in droves. Like the number of Catholic-based scouting units cut in like half within 3 years of that, because they didn't like it. Because that was one of the boys' clubs. That was the one that everyone who was in that was on the altar boy track or was in the leadership positions at the
and there's
Catholic
girls,
school.
they'll get distracted.
Yep. So there's a
course.
there's a different scouting organization that is based on that is based on more traditional Catholic beliefs, even though it's not actually traditional Catholic beliefs, because
that's not a traditional Catholic belief.
Yeah, the chauvinistic,
the separation of the genders
things,
is not a thing.
That's not.
It's never been. It's never been. So I don't know what they're talking about. Like, not that the Catholic Church is sexist. It's sexist as fuck. But I'm just saying, like, that is not that was not a thing.
No, that was a middle American 1950s thing.
Because like I went to like Catholic like Bible studies when I was like in CCD, and it was co-ed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there wasn't a separation of separate CCD and other classes for, boys and girls. You all sat together, because the idea also is that you'll meet other Catholics, and then you're going to marry someone within your social circle, because that's all yours from birth on.
Yep. I was given that advice a couple of times, like, oh, just pick someone from the church you want to go. It's like, I don't want that. Like the people in the church, like I was friends with, but like it wasn't like a, why should I have to do what you want to do this? Like, I didn't want that.
My choices when I was growing up of the boys I could have dated were assholes. Like they were bullies in the Catholic Church. Because I went to Catholic school for elementary school, and then by the time I got into junior and high school, I was going to public school.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was a kid, it was kind of. But also, my parents wanted me to kind of date boys, even though that were they would allow me to date other boys that weren't Catholic, but they had to be some kind of God believer. I couldn't date like an atheist or a Buddhist. It wasn't explicitly said, but what's really funny is my first husband is also agnostic, and my husband, my current husband, is an atheist. So that did not stick.
Yeah, obviously that happens a lot, and it happens a lot more than the leaders of those churches want to believe. Because they're like, oh, if we keep everything together, we can keep them all together, and it's like doesn't really always work that way.
No, especially when you're exposed to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because it's like, oh yeah, you pick someone from this silo, and then you're gonna stay with someone from that silo. But also, you have to do the same thing as the person in that silo, because if you don't, then you're not gonna have that person. And what are you gonna do then? You're gonna be out in the wild. You're not gonna survive that, because you were supposed to stay here. So if you leave, that's your fault. It's like it's the indirect guilt call that you're given for
wanting something other than to, I don't know, like to date someone that's not like you.
Yeah.
Or be exposed to different things, and it's just and I it didn't really stick in my family either, because both of them, like my dad was a Methodist that married a Catholic that was a foreigner, because my mom's from Canada. Stella here has ever become a American citizen. Stella here on her visa. So that happened. So so my parents couldn't even make that argument that I had to marry Catholic. It was just more within the church. The messaging was, but we were a pretty liberal family, not super liberal, but centrist. centrist.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a different experience. So were you growing up, like, were you like super conservative growing up?
Yeah, so like we were one of the households that we couldn't read Harry Potter because it was demonic. Like we actually had a VHS
Oh
tape.
yeah, that's
We
true.
actually had the VHS tape with it, so that about why Harry Potter was demonic, and it's just in hindsight really funny.
That's how you
But
became progress. That's how you become an atheist, is that you read Harry Potter.
yeah, I don't think that's how that worked. But
no.
that's just law now.
I'm just snarky. Go ahead.
but like the music thing, we had the radio station, so we'd listen to what was on the radio station. Video games, we were allowed to play video games sometimes, but it had to be what they approved of, which wasn't always consistent, because like I was playing like StarCraft and Red Alert, which are real-time strategy war games, and we'd play them at the radio station. Even it's like, if we're not supposed to be, it's supposed to be love everyone, not be violent, but we're playing these games, and being the young person who was overthinking everything, like, why are we doing one thing and not the other, even though these are not real people. Obviously they're cartoons in a video game. Like, and I don't know, that was kind of those things, like, well, I don't care, I like playing the games for the most part. It's just didn't seem like it fit everything. And then we were doing it on the radio, at the radio station. Heck, the one time when the pastor was over playing the games with us, so there was like 8 people there playing StarCraft on a LAN party, like complete Y2K era setup at the radio station, and they accidentally forgot to switch the monitor sound line off for the computer, so it was playing the game sounds for StarCraft over the air in the middle of the night. And
oopsie daisy.
Being that the pastor's favorite faction was Zerg, which sounded like they were bugs, they were alien bugs. There's like these bug sounds coming through behind the music at like midnight, 1 a.m. And there's voice messages being left at the radio station because
demons.
Yep,
demons.
Yep. People thought we were being possessed that night. And kind of like the people who shared the building with us, who ran the church side of the building, we were in the back side of it that was not connected to the church for pretty much except paying rent. The bats got in because it's a 150-year-old church. The bats are going to get in, and it hung from the banner. And the one lady who was the caretaker in the mornings on the weekdays was like, "You guys are being possessed by demons because the bat hanging from your banner." It's like, no, I don't think that's a thing, because bats exist in the wild, and there's big holes in the in the old clock tower because we have to have a signal shoot out to the broadcast station, or the broadcast node 2 miles away. So like, bats are going to get into this building. You can't stop that.
That's it. They're bats.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Like, just a little sidebar that, like, like people thinking, like, just random things, like a bat just hanging from a raft means that you're now possessed with a demon. I'm like, why a bat? Like, why is that like the association? It's just like, to live that life thinking everything is like an omen or a sign, or whether you've been blessed or cursed. It's a very weird way to live. Like, because Catholics don't do that.
Yeah. Well, that seemed like the churches we didn't associate with. The one did, instead of a harvest party, they did the Hell House thing. That was very popular in the 80s.
I never went to one of those, and I am very happy I never did.
Yeah, there was a church in Bay City that did one for a few years. Actually, they were in the townships, but it was in our county, and they did them for a few years. And we went to one for the radio station.
Oh my God, I'm so
never
sorry.
went back. And never went back.
Oh no,
we didn't know what it was. We just thought it was going to be
like a haunted house put up by a church. Yeah.
And it was definitely not. I mean, it was tamer than some of the accounts I've seen from other people, or the videos from some of them that they used to record themselves doing that stuff. So it was tamer than those, but it was still like, yeah, this doesn't seem very right.
See, like, because I remember they were like starting to become a thing in the 90s, like the late 90s when I was growing up. But I went to real haunted houses with my friends when I was a teenager, and it was fun, but like, like I didn't, again, a lot of these evangelical Baptist like culture stuff I didn't get exposed to until I became an atheist. Like I never knew how a lot of this stuff went on. And I'm like, what? What do you want?
And it's very much, it's a different kind of insular, because like, you know, you have your groups, like you said, like you didn't know that existed. It's like, oh, that's what most people are, especially you get south of Detroit into Ohio, where there's a lot of small towns, and into Kentucky where there's even less towns, and you have the Ark Encounter and Creation Museum right there. Then you go into Tennessee, and they've been passing laws to try to add Christianity to their government for forever, and into the old Confederacy, where they never really gave up the
oh no, when I went to Nashville, I saw some Confederate flags just in store windows, and I was like, that's a thing
and
that I don't see all the time.
What's even crazy is when you see it north. Yeah. It's even crazy when you see it in the north, and you get out into the middle of nowhere, and you find towns of 500 to 3,000 people. There's usually those out all over the place, even though they've always been north of the Mason-Dixon by about 400 miles.
Like, were you part of the Confederacy, motherfucker? Like, why? Well, that's what I find so interesting is because, like, in New England, you don't see that. You know, I grew up in New Hampshire, and it's very north. I'm like, you have your pockets of races. I mean, they exist everywhere, but like a Confederate flag being like a store window or something, like, you're not going to see that. Like, there's racists there, but they're quite racist.
Like, they know how to code themselves so that you can't pick it out if you're not looking for it.
Right. But it must be interesting living in a place where you can put a Confederate flag in your fucking window of your business, and people are like, I'm going to shop there. Like, I remember, like, there was, like, when we were in Pigeon Forge, we were walking by what I thought would be like a cool candle shop. Mm-hmm. And then I saw a flag, and my husband saw it first. He goes, we don't want to go in there. and I go, why? And he goes, no, we don't. No, we don't. They don't need their money. They're fine.
And yet, they're the ones who get the most upset when things don't go their way, because they want to have their views be the only views, and that seems to be a theme fairly often when they want to be that open with it. Because, you know,
right, and they don't understand why people don't feel the same way they do, and I'm like, because you're an asshole, you're a bigot. People don't like bigotry as a general concept.
and nice, like there's I just read one of the former complexes that was owned by a church that was unoccupied for like 50-60 years now has a new development on it in Arkansas, and it's recruiting people under the age of 40 who want to live in a whites only society because it's private land. They're allowed to do that, and they have like 800 people who
do that. Do it. Go have racist island. Go live there. Go there. All you racist bigots, go live in your weird ethno state, you know, all on your own. I'm like, there's not going to be a lot of diversity as far as breeding goes. So I expect you guys to get really sick, but you know, go live there. There's probably going to be some inbreeding going on. That's why you're racist.
But that's not being normalized again in the U.S. after we kind of shut that down after the Levittown's incidents of the 50s. When we finally ended redlining, even though we didn't actually end it, just kind of shifted.
No, we didn't. We just
made it less restrictive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now that's becoming more prevalent in normal society, it's like we're going to start seeing those things pop up more, and we're going to try to figure out.
Yeah, I know
what could be done to prevent them from having more power. And
I used to think it was like, you know, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Now I feel like it's one baby step forward and then 10 steps back currently, because I feel like we're fighting the tide, but that's okay. Somebody's got to do it, even though it's terrible. I also think that it's not the majority. It's the squeaky wheels getting the oil right now. And that's a lot of it too, because the majority of people don't think this way.
Yeah, and when the squeaky wheel also has money to spend, then they can be much
Right.
louder and more direct, and they tend to be.
And have more influence,
Hmm.
unfortunately. Because money talks more than ethics, apparently.
That's usually how it works, and that's why you have the person who raises the most money wins like 80% of the elections, even in
Right. And
primaries.
then or you get lucky, like in the New York mayor, that Cuomo got a whole bunch of money in
Mhm.
his Democratic opponent won because he was like, "Hey, I'm going to make buses free.
Yep.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that." And he was pushing a bunch of progressive politics forward, and everybody was like, "Okay."
And the fact that in New York specifically, so most states have a no sore losers law, where if you lose in a primary, you're not allowed to be in the general election. But New York
Mhm.
never adopted that, so he's paying the fine that they have to do that, to be a late filer, to be on the ballot again as a separate party because he is playing the sore loser card.
Oh, poor Cuomo.
And what's crazy is that he's going to likely,
There.
yeah, he's likely going to lose share than what he had in the primary, because you're going to have people who just look at the letter and he's not going to have a letter, and you're
Right.
going to have people who are upset that he's doing this, so they're not going to support him for that. And then you have the independent that also of the current mayor who's not raising money but is also in there. Plus you have the Republican side, and then
Mm-hmm.
Mondani. You have like 5 choices on a general election, which for the New York City mayor has pretty much never happened. Like 5 known names is not really common, even in New York City. So it's going to be interesting to see what that actually lays out to be. But he's going to be spending a ton of money, and I'm very
And he
curious how
won't
much
have
he's going to
Elon
burn.
backing him anymore, so that'll be interesting.
I'm surprised he even started,
I'm
because
surprised. Well, because it's interest. It's not party. It's interest.
but
You know.
it's New York State. There was never interest
Yeah.
for him to be in New York State, except for a
No, of
court
course
access. He could go to New Jersey for that.
that is true. It's just anyway. Sorry. It's just So you can. What was like? When did you start to transition? Not so much like leave, your faith behind, but you were kind of like, this isn't squaring anymore. Like,
The one that I tried to hold to originally was in during high school. You had the biology class where you learn about evolution. It's like, well, I was always told this, so I want to make a stand here and try to not do that. And it's like, well, at that point, because the focus around stuff, so we were young Earth creationists effectively. But I had a science teacher who walked me through and was like, but what if? And then, does one day actually mean a day? And he went that route with it. Like, does one day actually mean a day, or is it just a time frame reference for us to understand? It's like, okay, well, so if I can be backed off of that position, and evolution is true, and we might have a thing that's related to the Bible still, but if I can back off of that, what else can be backed off of? And things just started falling. It's like, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that happened that way, or these are stories, or this story doesn't make sense in the Bible because the authorship, when you look at the history of it, doesn't match like anything else.
right.
And then who chose the authorship in the Bible? It's like, well, it was people who, one, aren't contemporary and now obviously, and two, were barely contemporary at the time it was chosen, and that they just scrambled together to try to align things before they all died off. They tried to put some things together. So it's like we we as my childhood, the Christian sect there never brought that up. It's like, well, they made decisions kind of rashly, and we never went back and fixed their decisions because we couldn't admit that they made a mistake, even though there were mistakes that
Right.
were made. There were obvious mistakes that were made even then. And the Catholics kind of went, well, there were mistakes here because these people interpreted it differently, and they just kind of left it at that. Like, we understand there's mistakes, we're okay with it because we know how to. We believe we know how to rectify it. But the evangelical twist is that you don't admit your mistakes, and then they tell you to read the Bible cover to
Right.
cover, and you read the Bible cover to cover, and it's like, no. And not only is it excessively boring for like 95% of it,
It's
it,
such
it,
boring. Like the Bible needs an editor really bad.
the fact that they can't even put things in the book order, not necessarily story order, because the stories come up multiple times referenced throughout the thing,
Yeah,
especially Old Testament.
Yeah, and
But,
it's something it refers back to something you read in a previous book and blah blah blah. So like, yeah.
but like when you're referencing things that haven't even happened yet in the
Right.
book because they put it in the wrong order, and like, why did they put it in the wrong order? It's like they just wanted to. It's like, that's not a good answer. If we're supposed to be infallible, why is that still in the wrong order?
Right. Like
That's just it's a
you have to
fundamentally flawed
do
system to believe that.
like it's because like there's another thing too is that Catholics believe in evolution. They know it's real.
Yep.
They don't deny. They just think that God fired the universe into existence, and then let nature take its course, and that the stories in the Bible, like the historical context is there, but also like they also say like this is written by men that were inspired by God, but they're still men and they're flawed. So this is not going to be perfect, and that's a way more
closer to
accepting perspective to have. It's not correct, but at least when I was a Catholic, it made more sense because it's like, okay, they're people and they're fallible, and this is not going to be perfect, but they interpreted what they thought God, the stories and things like that. But God is real, and everybody was like, cool, and then you move on because you're going to listen to the Pope anyway, because the Pope's going to tell you how to interpret the Bible. So that's all you need to know.
Yeah. But yeah, the other side, you don't have that. You have you're supposed to do essentially do your own research, but only do your research in certain ways because we don't want you to actually think outside the box. We want you to stay in the box. So listen to these people, and they'll tell you what to believe, even though they're not being honest with themselves either. And that's where you get the Ray comforts and can't hope and everything.
Which the convoluted mental gymnastics of those motherfuckers makes my head spin. Yeah. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, Ray.
Like, no. You don't need any more banana men and
no. Well, actually, that was very funny. So and then everybody was like, Ray, we designed the banana, by the way. I'm just saying that is not how bananas grow in the wild.
And like there was even a couple songs in the radio station that were like anti-evolution that we had, and they like twisted it into we never literally we never saw X turn into Y, ergo it didn't happen. Like we literally played a song like that, but changed the meaning of evolution to just your spiritual guidance. Of once you realize that that's never been observed, that means that you have to believe in God. It's like, in hindsight, no. Why would
no? Why? Why do I have to? It is really funny because they didn't see it either. So, like, well, you didn't see God make anything. So your argument's kind of bunk because at least like I have a fossil record. Like science has evidence. You just say like, well, we weren't there to see it, so it can't be real. But I'm like, but you weren't there to see anything. So why is it real? I would like an explanation, please.
Yeah. And that was like one of the court case that happened in the early 2000s that kind of made sure that not creation, it wasn't creation directly, it was the intelligent design case. When that one came through and failed in the court system, that was one of the
was that Brown?
I don't remember what the name of the case. I just remember that happened while I was in school, and that was one of that happening was one of the threats that we were going to move to a state that would still teach creationism in the school, because that was the real way that things were made. Because that was what they believed, and they couldn't be challenged by that. And that emotional complexity to admit that you may not have been taught the right thing growing up is not something that my family was ready to admit to themselves.
I was not correct. That Brown versus the Department of Education had to do with segregation in 1954. So different case.
That's a much different case, yeah. What was that one?
Yeah, that's a completely different case. Like,
Kitzmiller Dover.
Okay.
Yep. Like I know the key phrases to bring it up, but I could not remember the name of it.
Okay.
But yeah, like that was one of the things. Like we want to move to a state that would still allow you to, that would still have that in the books, because there were some states that they knew wouldn't take it out as a, well, it could be right, but it could be wrong, because they were allowed to do that still. You just couldn't explicitly do
It's
intelligent design
like,
only.
because I had, like, this is the thing I always, like, I had science class and religion class in Catholic school. Like, you went to science class and you had religion class, and they were separate classes. Like, they were not the same class. And so I think that, when I heard people like believe that the earth is only 6 to 10,000 years old, I'm like, that sounds really dumb. Like, I don't understand why people believe that. Now I understand it's indoctrination, homeschooling, and not getting like a proper education. I understand that, but it's just very frustrating, because you can present evidence. And because I had a conversation with a young earth creationist, and my brain kind of broke, because he kept saying, like, because I was like, okay, because like we were talking about the age of the earth, and I said, okay, I go, on the wiki article alone, there's 213 sources on the age of the earth.
And
he's got one book.
Each of those probably had like 10 sources within them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a bunch of other sources within. And then I said, I go, you have one book. And I said, I go, doesn't it seem like the thing that has more, information supplied to it would be correct? And he said, no, because of demons. And I'm like, okay.
Which tracks.
And
that tracks.
and I'm like, there's no counter argument I have to that, because if you believe demons are real and influencing the scientists to misinterpret, like, I don't even understand, like, how do you even respond to that?
Yeah. And that was just such a thing that like, even back to like when the last real thing that was like the Hail Mary by my family to say, oh, look at this to prove the young earth creationism, was the Bill Nye debate.
Oh, with Ken Ham?
Yeah. Because Ken Ham was a role model from the radio station.
Really?
Oh. Yeah. And so, like,
don't get fooled by his fooled by his Australian accent.
No.
Or is he from New Zealand? I don't know, from there.
They did the debate, and that was like, okay, well, he is completely wrong about pretty much everything. And like,
right.
The counter argument from was like, well, Bill Nye's not a true scientist. Like, no, but he's a decent communicator at the very least. Like, he at least knows how to reference things. And Ken had no idea how to do any of that stuff, because he kept going back to his same loop, and he wouldn't advance the conversation even, which is like, you can't do that. And you're trying to set things up, and you were the one leading the setup for this 3.5 hours, and you can't even come up with more than one line, and something's wrong, and it's on you, dude.
Yeah, and and when he said that, like, nothing will change my mind, that then that's it. The conversation's over.
Yeah.
Because if you won't even allow yourself to maybe consider new information, you don't have to accept it, but just to consider it.
And that's kind of the point where a lot of the evangelical politicians go to. It's like, well, I'm not going to listen to anything. I'm going to do what I want because I know it's right, and I'm not going to listen to any of it. It's like, you have to at least listen. If you're not going to at least listen, then who's providing you with your information? Because you're just taking it verbatim. And a lot of the times it's from the same specific think tank groups that do the research for them by giving them a blank bill and says, put your name here and here, and here you go. And in Michigan, the state legislature has been caught a few times getting bills introduced that weren't filled out. The people literally took the form, submitted it with your name information on it, and I can't remember what that official name is at the state level, who reviewed it, said, you can't submit this, doesn't have anything on it. And it literally says your name on it, and not your name as in your actual name. It just says parentheses your name. So you obviously didn't write this. So then they have to take a copy of it, make sure it doesn't come back up again, because all I know is an outside source. And just the lack of critical thinking in a lot of areas, it's definitely causing problems.
It's causing more problems than I even know how to contemplate. And I think that's a problem, because if you're in, especially if you're in government, you're supposed to be representing your constituents, and you're supposed to listen to them regardless of party. Like if you are supposed to be part of a district, or a mayor or whatever that you get hired for, that you don't just let's talk to the people that you like and agree with you. You have to represent everybody.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't vote for you.
Yeah.
That's your job.
That is one of the descriptions of that. And a lot of people don't, especially when you go higher up and you have staffers who can filter things out for you. Because like if you go to Lansing for state government, and you're there as either a representative or a senator, you have at least 3 staffers working for you. One goes on the floor with you to go over the information that's being presented to make sure you're ready for the vote. One that runs the constituent side, which answers all the calls and the emails and tries to get things through that can be done, like I have a Medicaid question, but you have to go to your state to get your Medicaid system set up. Okay, you have to call your constituent, or excuse me, you have to call as constituent to your representative, them to send you to the correct office and the right person. I don't really know why they do that in Michigan, but that's one of the requirements, is that if you have an issue and you can't sign up through the system, you have to call your representative's office in Lansing and have them forward you forward. And then you have a third person who is either in the district if you don't live near your, or if Lansing is not near your district. So like if you're someone who's up in the Upper Peninsula, like Marquette or Ironwood, and you have in Lansing doing full time there, you're there 26 weeks full time, and another 13 weeks you could be there at full time as well. So you're there half to 2/3 of the year. You have to have someone in your district who's able to field things and walk through things and organize things up there. So you have 3 people running at all times. At that point, you're not as connected. And if you're not as connected, you have to make sure the people who are in your office and who are talking to you outside of your staff actually have your interest in heart. And you see the way that the parties organize their staffers, that certain staffers pick their person because of the donations they got. And it's really shady. Like that's a really shady part of state government in Michigan. But also the people in the who are in the actual lobby of the chambers are generally the people who are giving the most money. So you see the people who give money to go to your fundraisers, and they're outside the doors, and you kind of know how to vote right away, because if they're there, you know that they're there for one of your votes, because you have to walk by them. In Michigan, the chambers are set up where you have to walk through the actual lobby. A lot of states don't have that anymore because of security reasons. But in Michigan, the main entrance to the chamber floor is still through the lobby. So it's definitely a very interesting culture to be in Lansing, and I'm glad I'm not there.
It just, because like my kind of feeling is, maybe I'm just like transparency. I know, weird like that. That I want, I think that there has to be like for politicians to go and talk to the people that don't always align with them, and have to sit there and listen to things that make them uncomfortable, and not get have staffers that are going to filter shit out for you just because it might upset you. I'm like, you got into politics for a reason. Just most not always the best reasons, but it's like, well, you decided that you wanted to do this. You have to remember, and you're going to hear things that you're not going to like, and you're going to have to adjust, and you're going to have to make some really, really fucking tough decisions. And some of those decisions you're not going to like to make, but and people are probably going to get mad at you.
Well, and that was something that
I'm like, you got to take the Spock approach, man.
Yeah. I was in a public policy thing through a local university that was different from the one I went to a couple years ago. And we spent a day in Lansing going through a day of meeting with lobbyists who wanted to talk to us, or meeting with representatives. And this happened 2 weeks after the abortion case went through the Supreme Court. So they were starting to pull everything back for abortion rights. And my state senator, who very much made a ton of statements about how wanting to ban abortion in Michigan, showed up to our thing. And I talked to him. And and I asked him about, like, what are your plans to protect things like IVF and rights for people who have medical who need medically required abortions. He's like, well, I don't know about them, so I don't care. And it was literally a statement to me, and he walked away. I'm like, yeah, you definitely don't even think about it. You just want to have the narrative of my side good, my side win, and I'm going to do whatever I can to keep winning. And thankfully, he didn't, because we passed something that fall in Michigan to protect abortion access in Michigan, in the state. But he definitely was against that from the start. He was very happy that the Supreme Court pulled down abortion rights and sent it to the states, because he was thinking he was going to be able to be part of a landmark restriction in Michigan.
Wow. I'm just kind of okay. So why did you want to get involved with politics?
I just wanted to be involved.
Why, Alex?
I wanted to be involved. I wanted to do things. I was going to the meetings complaining about things already. And it's like, well, if I'm already here, why not try to do something about it? And I lost the first time. Like, well, I can still keep going. And I tried again. And the second time I'm now in, and it's like, well, now I can go. I can still complain about things, but my voice is more power now. But was still one voice out of 9, so I don't have to convince as many people to get things moving forward, but I still need to convince other people to get things moving forward. And our current commission, see, nine seats. We have one we just appointed this month because there was a vacancy from resignation. Next one was elected with me. The next one is the third ward is up next year, and she may be gone before then if she sells her house. Fourth ward got elected with me. Fifth ward resigned and we're looking to fill her seat. Sixth ward is me. Seventh ward was appointed during the election last year because it was an off year for them. Eighth was elected with me, and ninth is termed out next year. So there's only 2 people on the commission with any sort of with any sort of experience on the commission, and neither of them wanted actual leadership positions. So it was all new people, and it was
great.
yeah. So we've been told a few times that, well, we're all new here, we don't know how things work. It's like, well, maybe that's a good thing sometimes, because obviously things that you think have worked the past 50 years has led to having our population and having to sell off 2 of our 2 city-owned bridges to a private company out of Colorado that is charging people $5.50 to cross a bridge that is a quarter mile.
Okay.
And then like obviously what has been working is not actually been working, but you want to say it's working because you like it. You're comfortable in your box, even though your box is shrinking. So now it's just about trying to fix that and trying to change minds, and it's difficult when again, if you're part-time, you don't get to be there all day to do the research for the decisions. You are required to have staff do things for you. So you have to direct staff to do things through the city manager. So you say, hey, city manager, I would like to have the parks department change how they do the schedule for the lawns, for example. That's not something that we've done, but I want to change how they do the lawn caring in the parks. Well, you can't just go to the parks department and tell them that you want that done so you can come up for a vote. The city manager has to determine if that's a good idea, and then go to the parks department and say, come up with a plan and come back to us. And the city manager can determine what is and what isn't viable whatever they want. So there's things that can go to the city manager and they'll just go, no, I don't like that, so I'm not going to tell my staff to do that. Or no, I don't think that's going to be a worthwhile investment, so I'm not going to have them pull up a plan. But we have one other card we can pull where we can pass a resolution, give a timeline, and have them come back to us with an idea. And we've done that twice. The first one, they came back with nothing. They said that there was nothing that they were able to do. And we just passed the second one to the last meeting, and they gave them 90 days to try to come up with a plan to adjust our tenants' rights and rental agreement system that we have. Landlords are required to have essentially dignified living. You can't have no plumbing in the apartment. You can't have missing windows or whatnot. Like the small things like that. That's what we have, and wanting to make that a little bit stronger if possible. but
Right.
we need to have the staff come up with the actual policy, because we're fighting between what we have and Fair Housing Act, because there's only so much we can do, because we can't go above and beyond what the feds have, but we can try to push up to it like some other cities have, and that's what we're hoping to get out of the staff. And if they come back to us with ideas like that, that'll be very nice for us to actually, say, look, we did it the right way. And they come back and say, oh, there's nothing we can do. It's like, well, we gave you ideas. Like, we gave you ideas of things that we know that we're lacking on, that we think we can make better, but you don't want to give them to us. And like, we're not asking you to triple the size of your department and overspend. Like, we think we can do these things by just making a couple adjustments and not having to spend a whole bunch of money. We think this is something that is doable. And if you can prove to us it's not, please prove to us it's not. Don't just tell us that we can't. You have
to show your work.
Yeah, please.
And I think that's one of them. Like I told you, Car works for FEMA. And one thing I've learned from knowing people that work in government, the government is like, I think people think that it runs like a certain, like, either you're all a bunch of bumbling idiots or you're all masterminds, one or the other. But really, it's in between.
Yeah.
It's about, and there's all these like rules you have to follow, and like, hoop jumping you got to do, and you got to like work with different departments and different people, and kind of try to make something semblance of order happen. And sometimes stuff gets done.
Sometimes.
But sometimes.
Something I like to use is that you're kind of stuck at the speed of government, and even locally, it's like I've had multiple people from the time I ran last time to even now say we should be pollinator positive city. We should do the no mow May thing. We should do things that would help local pollinators increase their productivity and population sizes by pulling back restrictions and cutting their stuff. But I did the first one. The first thing I submitted was just hey, we're going to move back a required cutting and clearing date from the 1st of May to the 15th of May. So it's 2 weeks. And I was told, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. It needs to be more spelled out, because we're going to have property owners who own actual property lots who won't cut their stuff and just going to let it go. And then they're going to get complaints. It's just going to be a huge problem. It's like, okay, I'll go back to the drawing board. And I created a different one that said that, well, if we're going to send a mailer out with our utility bills, and you can sign up for the next year, and you can get 2 extra weeks if you sign up for the next year. You'll be on a list. I was like, no, you can't do it, because all you're going to get are the people who are going to sign that up so they don't have to do it, and they're just going to submit the thing, and everyone's going to do it, and it's going to be a huge paperwork thing. It's like, okay, so you're telling me that I can't do it. Like, well, no, you can work with local organizations to do it in the parks. I'm like, well, there's a 1.5 mile radius where there's no parks in the city. So there's no spots for that. It's all residential. Like, so you're telling me that I have to go to this organization to do something that doesn't help a good chunk, a decent size area? Because 1.5 miles is not like the flight of the travel of a migrating bird or anything, but that's a large area where you're having less insects that are beneficial settle, which means higher up the food chain is a kind of like a desert there for them, which leads to very bland ecosystems. And just like trying to get people to think outside the box has been difficult when the same people who have been in charge in the city staff side for 20 plus years are the ones who are telling me they can't make any changes. And when they come up with changes to make things, they're like, well, don't do it that way, do it this way. It's like, well, I tried it that way before, and you told me I couldn't do it that way before. And that fight has been something that is now the regular situation for having to work in government when you're not a full-timer.
You're right. So how many hours a week do you devote?
Meetings are twice a month. Ours are between, right now, about 90 minutes and 3 hours, usually. Previously, there was a year where they were only half hour at a time, but I wasn't on the commission time. I was just one who went there. So it varies based off who's on the commission and what's coming forward. And then you're doing your calls, emails, whatnot. And that's right now not a ton of time, like hour or two a week. But then you're talking to your other commissioners, on a one-on-one basis, because you can't have them talk together. That's a Freedom of Information Act thing that you have to make sure you're following, and you can't have more of them together talking, or else everything can be pulled on FOIA, and you can't have more than so many together, or else you're in violation of the Open Meetings Act. So like you can one-on-one with people, but you can't do groups. So you have to relay things back and forth between people if you have questions, and just working to get that system efficient for the group that's here has taken some time. I have a couple of people that I can talk to pretty openly about ideas and spitball things back and forth, and then we have a couple that won't respond to me, and that they, from the sounds of it, they don't really respond to much of anyone. So you can only work with what you have. But if I can manage to get a partial yes vote from people before, and like, yeah, I would support that. Like,
right.
If I'm going to get enough of, yeah, I can support that, then we'll put it forward. And other people are like, hey, can you help me clean things up so I can put this up? It's like, yeah, if you give it to me, then I don't see a problem with it. Like, you put whatever you want up, I'm still not vote for it. But if you need help making sure it's like in line with what the standards are, we can work with that. Just kind of learning how to do that as efficiently as possible without spending everyone's time doing absolutely nothing, because there's a lot of times where it's like you're not really introducing anything, you're not questioning anything, and you're just letting the staff run the show entirely. I think that's giving the staff too much power over the people who are voting for the commission, because a large portion of our staff doesn't actually live in the city. They live in the township, or they live in a different county. So like we have at least 3 of our major city directors are not even county residents, and they're not required to be. That's state law does not require them to be, but they don't even live in the city, so that they're making decisions for us in the city without being questioned by the commission for way too long. And then I just assume that they're always going to be right for the city because they've just been in the positions. Like, that's not really fair to the people who live here. That questions need to be asked sometimes, so that you can make sure that
No, Alex, you can't ask questions.
I've been told that
you can't represent your constituents correctly. You have to and people are just gonna do what they're gonna do. Don't lower your expectations, man. That's what I tell myself about government. Lower your expectations.
Yeah, and I mean, at least on the local level, you can kind of work through some things with people, because you're local. Right. There's more chance that they're actually going to listen to you, even though you don't have nearly as much quote unquote power as if you to, oh man, I'm a U.S. senator, I can say whatever I want here, you're not going to stop me. Like, no, that's not helpful.
That's not how this works.
It's just kind of working through getting your neighbors happy to as much as you can, and also trying to make changes that help your city move from a system that has long passed them. Because we were a GM town, where a GM plant used to be like the place to work. Now it's like 300 jobs. It used to be thousands. We used to have industry all the way up the river. We built patrol boats for the war effort in World War II. The shipbuilders are gone. We used to have 4 or 5 stone docks through town. There's now 1 in our city. Like all these industries.
There's a whole bunch of textile mills and stuff like that used to exist in New Hampshire for the first part of the 20th century, and those are all gone.
Mm-hmm.
There's no textiles being made in New England anymore out the Merrimack River. It's all apartments or shops or restaurants in the mill districts. And that goes all the way down into Massachusetts, into Lowell and Auburn and things like that down there. That industry's gone. The people are like craving a past. I'm like, I understand you want that back, but we don't live there anymore.
And it's very hard to convince people that you need to try something new, but also you need to try to hold on to what you have as long as you can. Because GM is no longer the big employer, but the facility is still there. If they ever leave, what's that going to mean for the city? They already have other sites around the city, and our city used to have a dump on an island in between the 2 river channels, which is now just recently got removed from the EPA Superfund list because it was that bad. Because it was getting dumped alkali residue from we used to make transformers for like power transformers. GM used to dump in there. Honeywell used to dump in there, and we're downriver from Dow Chemical that used to dump into the river, and is just finishing up the dioxin cleanup settlement from 20 years ago, and just trying to back all those things up to make things more attractive here is it's a multi-generational effort. But when you're trying to hold on to jobs that also don't exist anymore, it's like, well, yeah, they only need 300 people at the GM plant now, but we need jobs for everyone else. What are we going to do? It's like, well, we have the service industry. It's like, well, the service industry does not pay nearly as well.
No.
And you're expecting people to work a service industry job and be able the same quality of life as someone who used to work a GM job. You're not going to have that, even if our housing prices are significantly lower than national average. Like when we bought our house, it was $50,000 move-in ready, effectively, and now it's valued at like 105, 110, which is still low compared to the national average. But we're now having houses in the area that are selling for 250, 300 that were maybe 100 10 years ago. Because we're in that stage of essentially flips. That out of state people buying it and paying a contractor to flip a house.
Yep.
And
same thing here.
With that driving up our prices, it hurts the people who are not making the wages that they used to. So, people who used to own these houses are selling because they're, behind on everything else. So they're like, oh, I'm going to sell the house and try to get in something else. Well, something else is more expensive, but if you don't sell the house, you might not have anywhere to live either. And you're going to, bankruptcy issues, and just when the people feel desperate, they start not thinking straight when they're in financial trouble. And when
I know that feeling.
When you sell a house so you can pay off your debt so you can start over again, and then you don't have anything, you're kind of stuck. And when you're making service level wages, it's hard to get back into where you were before, especially when the prices have long passed what the service industry pays for the most part.
Right. And luckily, like me and my husband are settled in our careers, but he's 56, I'm 48. Like we're older, like we're seasoned, in that regard. But there are people my age too that aren't, and we're college educated. Are we using anything we went to college for? No. But,
I'm a rarity in my group of the people graduating.
I picked an industry that doesn't make any money unless I wanted to go to go get my master's and be even more debt.
And again, that's the thing I was told. It's like, oh, you go to college, you finish your 2 years, you'll get your job. It's like, no, those jobs stopped existing.
Tom said, like when he got his BA, that he would be making like enough money to afford a house and 2 kids. And education every year.
That was hey, you finish your bachelor's and your first job will be $55,000, and that was in 2011. I was told that, so it's like an $80,000 a year job now. I still haven't made that much in a year at a single job. It's like the false promises that are given to you in certain from certain institutions and thought processes of, you just do it the right way and the money will just fall into your lap. It's like this.
You're going to be successful. Yeah, that's the.
You need to. The only people who did that were the ones who their parents already owned the business. It's like that doesn't help at all. Because
or they knew the right people to talk to. But like, even if like, and then like, let's say you do get into like some kind of profession, like, a medical profession, or, you get your doctorate in like therapy, or you get your business, you get your business degree or whatever, or your MBA in business management. That doesn't mean shit. It depends on what type of job you get. And you're still now, and then like all that money that you thought you were going to make, you're going to be spending a whole lot of money on student loans. My loans are still in deferment. It's just too much money. It's too much money. I make payments, but I'm never going to be out of debt.
Yeah, I got lucky with that. I was managed to scholarship my way out of that at the place I went, and I would have been able to do that at a couple of the other places in the area that I was allowed to look at. But the back end of it is that the university I went to didn't really have a support system for graduates. they didn't have a things like, oh, hey, alumni are looking for people who are freshly graduated. It's like that didn't exist. I graduated. I graduated high school in 2009 in the midst of the recession, to college in 2013 when everyone was recovering. So I was finding people who had been off for 2 years with 30 years of experience trying to get jobs again. So, I was not an attractive candidate to most places at that time. So I was working at Kmart full time doing college. It's like, well, I can't go to the networking things that they want you to go to. It's like, oh, you need to come to a networking thing and do an interview for an unpaid internship. It's like, I can't do that. Like, you want me to do an unpaid internship when I literally at that point when I graduated, I technically was living in a basement. Like that wasn't something that was going to work. And you can only play that game so long when you don't have the stability preset, like the people who they went work for their parents' firm, or they went work their parents' dealership. Like, that was a big thing. We actually called them the dealer babies. Their parents owned car dealerships. They went to the school, and then they graduated and they became managers at their parents' dealerships.
Yeah.
Boom. Like, oh, so you were able to walk into a $150,000 job because your dad knew that you were gonna graduate, so you could take over the business and you could retire. Like, you didn't have to go to college. You did it as a formality, effectively. And that was a quite common theme.
Yeah, and I there's like, I have mixed feelings about that. Like, obviously, I don't blame a parent for wanting their child to take over, doing business management and wanting them to be successful. Like, every parent wants that. And if I owned a business, I would probably want my kids to take over, and carry that on. Like, I get that. But also at the same time, I don't want other people to be screwed and stuck with debt and not be able to have any upward mobility either. It's a mixed bag.
They use the examples of those families getting the jobs. That's how you succeed. It's like, well, what if you don't have that? And that's what
what if you're
people going to these places?
What if you're a woman, or because the men were considered the ones that were going to inherit that business. Like, I have 5 older brothers. One of my brothers inherited my dad's business. That wasn't gonna go to me. Silly. I'm a girl. And then, or if you're in a lower economic range, and you're not given the same opportunities as everybody else does. You don't have a dad,
that's
happened to be, a manager of a Dow plant. You didn't get that,
And like that's one of the things too, is that they determined that looking at people over the past 80 years, your zip code determined your well-being as an adult more than anything else. It mattered where you were born to, and because zip codes were set up in a way that you could still, like, in large cities, the suburban zip codes were set up very much as the next generation of redlining, because they couldn't stop you from moving there, but they could see where the old lines were. So like there's like 4 or 5 zip codes in the Metro Detroit area that the average income is like $350,000. It's like, how is that possible when you have people 2 miles over a different zip code making $20,000 a year as a household? Like that disparity exists, and the people who are in the $20,000 a year zip code are very unlikely to see any sort of success, whereas the ones in the $350,000 zip code are almost guaranteed success. And there is very, very much a barrier system for economic stability that has still not been addressed and has actually, for the most part, gotten worse over the past 50-ish years.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon, unfortunately, because we live in hell. Every day is opposite day. What has been like the biggest lesson that you've learned from working in government?
Don't let people tell you no. So like you like obviously they say no and it can't be done, that's fine, but don't let that no be the end of the story.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
you might have to figure out a different way to ask, or a different person to ask, or a different concept of that problem to try to fix. But the first no should not be the end of the line. It's just a
Yeah.
you have to take that as a, okay, fine, we'll look at something else and try to figure out a different way to do it. And sometimes it takes multiple tries to get anything forward, and sometimes it gets you really annoyed, but it's just, you have to keep going with the nose until someone says, well, maybe. And then once you get a well, maybe, it's like, well, then that's the way we're going to go, and just keep fighting forward.
Right. And I think that's a really good point to point out, that sometimes it is going to be like, kind of digging at people for them to like, having to figure out how you're going to get things done. And I think that's really important. That's a good advice in life in general. It's like, just because you hear the word no doesn't mean it's the end of something, and especially working in government, I have to imagine. So.
Yeah, and it also like the old adage of keep your friends close and your enemies closer. It's like that in government, it doesn't always work that way, because usually if someone is completely polarized opposite of you, and they're not going to answer you or do anything, then you have to build your coalition without them, and that's what happens. I mean, that's why our two-party system exists the way it is, because there's a 1 and a 2, like or 1 is, if you want to go binary, so you have the ones and you have the zeros, and that flips based off of who has more power in the body. And when you're in a local office, it's like, our office is technically a nonpartisan office. We don't run under a party label, but they both parties kind of have their own people who they want to run for these seats, if no one's running. And previously there was no interest to run. Like, we had, since the year 2008, I think 60% of our elections for seats have been uncontested. So you have one person put in, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a walk-in seat. But it's a matter of who is backing whom, and trying to figure out if they're actually someone who believes that, or if they're someone who didn't have a home politically and just sided with that and decided to act on something. Because, like, one of my bigger supporters from the first time around was someone who was like completely against our current mayor. Called him a communist and tried to steal his signs, even though I told him, don't steal his signs, let him put his signs where he wants. And that's the guy who ran against me last time. And like, that's how the cookie crumbles. But just trying to figure out who you can work with and what you can work with each person on is something that is a learning experience. Like, it's not always going to be a direct yes and no from everyone. But if someone who's like pretty much told you they're not going to work with you, you sometimes have to just let it go. And that's a lesson that is still one that I've probably fallen victim to a couple times.
Well, I mean, you're a human being. You're allowed to do that. So.
I'm an elected official. I'm supposed to have, like, I'm supposed to be getting checks from everyone for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And
well, yeah, because you're a government shill, Alex.
Yeah.
You're supposed to. You're liberal to get on
$8,000.
them George Soros money, right? Where's all your George Soros money? Show me.
The 30th of February.
Right, exactly. All right. Well, I'm sorry for the technical issues, but thank you so much for coming on. This is kind of enlightening, because as someone that does not work in government, I learned some shit.
Well, that's good.
Do I feel any better about the function of government? It's debatable. But I guess, but you also work on the local level. We tend not to think about the people that do unfortunately, the local level. We tend to think about state elections and country.
Yep.
We're not really thinking about like your local city commissioner, what they're doing, or what the department of your local school board or whatever is doing. So I think this was a really good peek behind the curtain of what goes on in your little what your little local government is doing if you live in the United States. So, you know.
Yep. And for the most part, the council system is used by most of the Anglosphere in some way or another. Because, like, obviously, national level, you have more parliamentary multi-party elections at the national level in like Canada, the UK, whatever. But the local level, it's definitely more similar to this everywhere, where you have a bunch of people going for a body of seats, and they just kind of get assigned there based off of a local election. So this does translate a little more internationally than the U.S. national politics system, but it is definitely something that is not known to a lot of people until they go to their local meetings and start learning about it.
Good to know. All right. So where can the people find you?
Let me pull that up because I have it somewhere. I mean, on Twitch, I'm under the name Progress Only for streaming, but my Facebook stuff is in. I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I'm going to pull the whole thing up.
Okay.
0. Because I don't know if I can post in the chat, but I can put it.
You can post in the YouTube chat, I think.
Yeah, that one. And that has the stuff that you can kind of follow the commission page or my other stuff that I've done to just kind of see how that works at my level. But, you know, a lot of stuff for me won't apply to pretty much anyone who would ever see this because, you know, 33,000 of 340 million is very small. So,
that is very small.
And, you know, I'm 1/9. My ward is 1/9 of that. So, you know, we're getting into the micro.
The micro.
Yeah.
But to be fair, though, I think that because I don't have a very big audience, but it's fine. I don't care. But it's more about like this is what your local government is doing, and like you know, and also the challenges that you face. You know, working, you know, at the local level. I think that any little bit of information about that's important because I think like for a lot of people, like government and politics are like this amorphous sort of like thing that we all agreed upon to participate in, but we're not always sure how it works. You know, and learning like the basics of how it works, like you get a clearer picture, and it's always good to have more education and understanding more, like you know what every aspect of these layers and how they are all interconnected. So that's really important to have a conversation about. So I really appreciate you doing that. So go watch Progress play video games.
My de-stress, yeah.
Yeah, de-stress stuff. Tomorrow night I will be here again at 7 p.m. Captain Dadpool is going to be on tomorrow night, and we're going to talk about because he was supposed to be here last Thursday, but he it got rescheduled. We're going to talk a whole bunch about biblical bullshit.
Cool. So more direct.
More biblical bullshit, a whole bunch of it. And then David T. from Recovering from Religion will be here on Thursday, and we're going to talk about religious trauma and recovery. So
awesome.
That's what I got coming up. And then I got 3 shows coming up next week. I'm not looking them up right now. I'm tired. You know, you'll find out. Like and subscribe and ring a fucking bell, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry for the technical issues. My internet was being a fickle bitch. Yeah, but I'll see you on the internet, probably around Ben's channel playing drunken silly games on a Friday night, and
more than likely,
and I'll probably at another atheist conference.
Hopefully.
Yeah. All right. I wish everybody a wonderful night. If I do not see you, give someone a compliment this week. Be kind, stay skeptical, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.